Okay.
All right, I'd like to call to order the Thursday, June 6, 2024 meeting of the Monona Sustainability Committee. Thorpe, do you have the roll?
Yes.
Got everyone? And then I'll take a motion to approve the minutes from our April 4th meeting. We did not meet in May, so it's a nice little trip down memory lane as I was reading them over. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, are there any changes, additions, corrections, anything like that thank you, Thorpe, as always, for, collecting what happened. It's really helpful. Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes as presented in the packet, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Wonderful. We don't have to give.
Says you can vote even if you weren't at the meeting.
That's why I was quiet.
Yeah. That's why I thought I'd let you know.
Oh, that's hilarious, Rick. So before we go any further, let's take the moment now, even though it's not officially on the agenda, but let's use this appearances portion of the meeting to introduce our new member, who is, many of you know already, Tim Cruiser. He, I would say he rose to local Monona fame through the ranks of the Bee and Butterfly Brigade. Joking aside, Tim has really been very helpful already in really bringing awareness to citizens about pollinators and pollinator habitat, and he had already applied for the sustainability committee, so it's a perfect match. Oh, excellent. There's Ashley. So Tim, would you like to go ahead and just introduce yourself, and then everybody maybe take a moment to go around the room and introduce ourselves?
Yeah, thanks for the introduction. As she said, I'm Tim Cruiser, and I think I know everybody here. Crossed paths with Sue a few times, and as well as everyone else here. So by day, I'm a physician for the SSM system. I'll look forward to working with you more by night, so and weekends. So thanks for having me. I look forward to contributing to the important and practical work you guys do.
Ashley Grice. I have been in Monona, 10 years now. Sorry, I ran here after work. Let's see. I work at the Institute for Tribal Environmental Professionals, which is actually based out of Arizona. I've been on the sustainability committee for a year and a half. I don't know at this point. My work primarily focuses on supporting tribal climate change adaptation planning. Takes me traveling quite a bit, so a lot of times I join virtually when I can. Yeah.
Great.
That's it.
Hi, I'm Rick Bernstein, co-chair. Second year, first time alder. I've been in Monona maybe 12 years. And I really like being on the sustainability committee. Lots and lots and lots of things to think about and do, so it's an experience.
Well, me, Thor, you can make any ask of me as the staff person for the committee. So in between meetings, if there's something you want to see on the agenda, if there's resources you come across that you want to bring forward to the rest of the committee, I encourage you to send me an email, include Rick and Teresa as the co-chairs on that email, and we can discuss. But we're really excited to have you, Tim, and I think you're going to bring a lot to the table here. Great, thanks.
Who would you like to go next?
Sure. I'm an old timer on this committee. And I am also engaged in a number of different environmental and social justice programs. And one of the things I try to do here is bring some of those perspectives and resources to everyone else on the committee as I fall into things that meet some of the kind of needs that we have here. But I also work on Eco Action Tuesdays out of the library, so that's more of a community focused arena. I work out of the sustainability committee at our church. And I have recently gotten involved in a program through some people there and friends of theirs with a formal program called Welcome Corps, which greets officially registered incoming immigrants and tries to get them situated in housing, jobs, and childcare and everything else they may need. That's been quite an experience, and I must say it's very, very eye-opening in terms of just the variety of levels of income and how that affects people and educational experiences, and it's been extremely expanding for me in terms of the realities of life, I guess.
Yeah.
So instead
Thank
of
you for doing that. Thank you for doing that. It's really remarkable.
interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
Very.
Yes, Sue, I'll just piggyback up of something Sue said. That you said you're one of the old timers on the sustainability committee. I think you were on the committee before I was, right?
Yeah,
Because I'm trying to recall, I've been a part of the sustainability committee for a long time, back when we were writing the original sustainability plan. I believe you were on that team.
oh, yes, yeah,
Yeah.
actually pretty much responsible for the introduction section.
Yeah.
For most of that,
I
and
remember working with you on that, yeah. So I'm Teresa, and I have the good fortune of being appointed to this committee. The mayor does all those appointments, so I always ask for this. I really love this committee, and I've always been involved in sustainability projects around the community from the time that my daughter was in elementary school, you know, with like the TerraCycle program to Eco Action Tuesdays, and then the sustainability committee, and most recently the high school solar project. And it's important. So I really appreciate being in a room with like-minded people. Sometimes I get frustrated that things don't move faster, but we're moving in the right direction. So I'm going to move to the next item on the agenda then, under unfinished business number 5, discussion and possible action on amendments to chapters 263-5 and 263-6 of the Monona Municipal Code of Ordinances regarding the regulation of natural lawns. Thank you, Thor, for putting that on the screen. Thor, since you did so much of the work here, let me just start with a really brief summary. Thor and I met with, at our last meeting in the minutes that we just approved, you'll recall that there was a recommendation that we meet with the Department of Public Works to get their input on this. That meeting happened. We met with Director Stefani, some employees of that department, our city clerk, and Alder Holmquist, who was on that committee. And basically we hashed out all the content that you're seeing here before you. And probably one of the most the best one of the great outcomes of that meeting was I think this body, we discussed quite a bit how it sure would be nice if we could get rid of that whole requirement to submit, you know, a plan and submit a proposal, and the whole permitting process seemed kind of clunky. And Thor and I think a lot of us were just sort of intimidated to even suggest that it be removed. It was actually Director Stefani who suggested it, which Thor and I just sort of looked at each other across the table like, yay, you know. So it was funny when that moment came at the meeting, and I just tried to keep my face not in a surprise place. But so Thor, you want to take it away?
Yeah, I'm very excited to, because I'm so happy to get this off the agenda. Yeah, so it looks a lot different now than the language we approved back in April, and that's because, as Teresa said, Director Stefani of Public Works ultimately came to the conclusion that he was not able to support that previous language because of the complications with planting on right of way. So we met and we talked about this, what's happening currently in the city we know property owners have plantings on right of way. It's occasionally problematic, it's occasionally not. So we worked with staff to develop this framework. So I don't think we need to go into all the details, but I'll just hit up the big summaries here. So we really wanna just rely on our existing ordinances for public nuisance and impeding right of way and things like that. So ultimately, the framework we agreed on was no more need for any permit or management plan. Residents are just free to plant natural plantings anywhere on their lot. So long as it doesn't become a problem, as long as it's maintained and managed and intentional. So there's no more setbacks, there's no more locational standards, dimensional standards, fence requirements, anything like that. We also removed the ability to burn your natural lawn. And then we also we changed the terminology as well from natural lawn to planned natural landscape area, just to give residents a better sense of what these actually are. It's effectively landscaping, but it's with natural care methods and more natural native plantings, and it's planned and intentional. So
Sounds great.
yeah, and we shared this new language with staff. I got no comments and support from the city clerk and the city planner and Public Works. I did get some feedback from the attorney today, not soon enough to get into the packet for you all. So I thought we could just quickly look at his comments. It's nothing that I was concerned about, just kind of some minor language changes, things that attorneys do. Good at.
They come up with.
So, yeah, just some quick language changes like. Let's see, removing redundant wordings. So it's just small changes there, and then. Let's see, he had a comment about what the term naturalized means. And just expanded on that language. The only thing that I thought maybe was worth a discussion point was this clause he added. That if us as the committee should have any kind of role in approving acceptable species that are native or naturalized to North America. I don't know how that would work. And it might be unnecessary, I believe, but.
If-
Yeah,
So my only concern is if folks are planting invasive species, just because there are not like regulations for lawn care centers that are selling plants to regulate that.
Mhm.
Also, it doesn't seem like we have any leverage to regulate it anyway, though, like in terms of what people are planting, but
Yeah.
it seems like maybe if we could put some kind of language in about having just a good faith effort to check that they're non-invasive species somewhere.
sure, yeah, let's see.
Yeah, Yeah,
Would that just fall under like unmanaged, if they are invasive, they're gonna spread
Right,
uncontrollably.
right.
But yeah, maybe we could add that term non-invasive somewhere in here.
Ashley, you said something I thought sounded very eloquent, like something about residents shall make all good faith efforts to ensure that, how did you put it?
That planted species are non-invasive.
Yeah,
And would that then be a topic by which a neighbor could file a complaint? Is that kind of the idea? The city's not gonna drive around and look at the species,
Right.
but
yeah,
you see someone planting a bunch
It
of.
could maybe be like an instance of like a nuisance.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah.
you wanna like define, kind of link those, right, like.
right, yeah, enforcement will almost always be complaint driven.
Yeah.
For this, as it currently is, you know, for
Yeah.
unmanaged
I
lawns.
guess it means you wanna somehow give someone who wants to complain something, some language here
Yeah,
that
Yeah,
allows them to have something to fall back on. It should be playing.
and I mean, the clause that the lawyer added about native and naturalized plants should cover it, but I think it is important still to be explicit that. You know, those should not include any invasive species.
okay, what about? Yeah, so there's the invasive species listed in NR 40, but that wouldn't, that's not all encompassing.
Sure.
I guess the question would be, what if someone wants to put in some very nice annuals that originated in the Caribbean and, you know, are not native, but they're planned. You know,
So,
gardens, I
yeah.
mean, you know, when people have, you know, flowers out in their yard that are not,
Yeah,
that's not something that we want.
And that was very similar to a conversation that Rick and Thor had before our full committee meeting. The three of us got together just to do a little pre-meet and review the language here. And Rick Alderbernstein has a front yard that is just filled with flowering plants, beautiful blooms everywhere. But they're roses, right? I don't think that's a so I mean, and it's still beneficial to pollinators, but it's not like a native plant, right? So that's why we removed a lot of instances of the word native and instead used the word natural, plant, natural landscape. Yeah. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it speaks to exactly what I was kind
Yeah.
of trying to get at. Do you put something here that says, you know, under point one, neighbors who voice a concern about species being invasive or intrusive. I'm not sure how to link those. You know, basically what you want is to give,
yeah,
you wanna speak to something that people don't want in the neighborhood.
yeah. Yeah, I don't think we need to explicitly link them together in the ordinance, just if we have a clause in there about. You know, being intentional about not having invasive species, then. You know, somebody who is complaining could lean on that clause, and we could then in enforcement. If it's something that the committee would like added. When we move to the motion here to accept the language, you can have a condition there that I work with the attorney to, you know. Include something along those lines, the general spirit of that, and we
The
can work it out.
spirit of the resident making all effort to ensure that there are no invasive species.
Right,
Is that what you're meaning?
right,
Yeah.
like to Bill's point in his comment here. You know, native and naturalized includes invasive species like dandelions and thistle, but we don't want people just, you know, letting those grow uncontrollably.
Yeah.
That kind of along the, you put your notes initially.
Yeah, yeah. Right there.
Does anyone have like, do we have some proposed language changes on the table, or Thor, do you have what you need, or Ashley, is there more that we need?
I think how you put it, Teresa, and you know, Thor, you said you'd work with the lawyer to make sure that it was kosher, then.
Yeah.
Okay.
That,
Okay.
I feel comfortable with that.
Okay. And then Tim, are you comfortable that not having any sort of language that specifically talks about how redress can be handled, or?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. And I think, or wouldn't that already be handled under a separate ordinance about nuisance, or how do I say it? Don't we have a separate ordinance for that? Like neglect or nuisance?
And if, you know. If there's a neighborly dispute, in someone's weed they're blowing onto someone else's yard. It's just a civil matter, and the city
Mhm.
can't get it involved unless there's a specific violation of, our lawn length or this ordinance.
Thor, was there something here, if you can refresh my memory, I recall Director Stefani, well, all of us had a long conversation about planting right up until the curb, which is permitted as long as sightlines are not blocked.
Right,
Am
so,
I remembering that
yeah,
correctly?
we didn't want to specifically encourage
Right,
plantings on the right of way, but we're
Right.
aware that it's going to happen, so. We just had language about not impeding or, I guess Bill added encroaching upon public right of way.
yes,
So,
exactly. So we don't want to come right out and say, yeah, it's great, go ahead and plant in the right of way. We don't want to do that. But we know it's happening. And the big issue is really, you cannot block sightlines.
right,
Okay. So, I'll take a motion to accept the, ordinance language with, the recommended changes.
That's great, I'll move.
So motion from Susan, is there a second?
A second.
From Ashley, all in favor?
do we want,
Oh,
a condition, any conditions?
Just the condition that Teresa had mentioned, that language be added regarding invasive species being added to the clause C-1.
Great,
okay. All in favor? Say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. We have finally done this. Oh my goodness. What we thought would be so easy. Silly. What were we thinking? Oh, okay. Lessons learned.
later, yeah.
Lessons learned. Okay, so city council meets next on the 17th. I don't know if it would be ready for a first read by that time. What do you think, Thor?
Yeah, we'll see
Yeah.
if I can work with Bill on the small changes.
Yeah, maybe then on the 1st of July. So the 1st and 3rd Mondays are city council meetings. So yeah, maybe the 1st of July. And that's fine. That's fine too. Okay, so we've got our ordinance. Woo! And next item on the agenda, still under unfinished business, update on the 2024 Nomome / Slow-Mo Summer and Pollinator Habitat Project. For this, I thought I would just, you certainly don't have to, but I thought I would just throw out a few questions to see where we're at just from my own notes and the project plan. And by the way, welcome, Kristen. I see that you snuck in.
Thank you. Apologies for my late arrival.
Nice to have you.
The late work meeting. Good to be here.
So you have a life outside of these meetings?
You know, don't know about the rest of you.
Yes. So, Kristen, would you please introduce yourself?
Yes.
For me.
Tim, is it?
Yeah, we've met on Zoom, I think, once, or.
I think we did, and I might have been part of the planting group.
Yeah,
For
I
the
think you
native
were.
That's right.
garden.
Yep.
I'm Kristen Gunther. I have had the privilege of sitting with these wonderful people here on this committee and participating. I do have a day job. I work for the state of Wisconsin, the Employee Trust Fund. I have a background in conservation and environmental science as an educator. What do I say? An adventurous practitioner on my own. So
Wonderful. Look forward to working with you. Thanks.
thanks.
Fantastic. So Tim, as you mentioned, I remember now we helped plant the library garden together. I remember that. There you were there. Wonderful. It's wonderful to have Tim on board. Okay, so I'm just going to go down some of the things that I know we were working on for our Nomome. Really, it's slow-mo summer pollinator habitats beyond No Mow May, right? Why don't we start with, well, Kristen, would you like to start? I know that you've got something in the works with PSAs.
I do. So we've had great success partnering with volunteers through WVMO. Dave Bruner is one of those very clever people who helps us to insert humor and or, catchy wording in our PSAs. And so Dave and I put together a few. I just wanted to add some content to some of he gave us 4 options. So I'm really excited to share those with you guys. And, one of them, I can just share an example of one of them to give you an idea of the kind of humor, but No Mow May has come and gone, but you can still help our local Monona pollinators by practicing slow-mo summer. Slow-mo means mowing less often, and when you do give your lawn a haircut, consider a shaggy mop top or perhaps a mullet. A little bit shorter in the front yard, longer in the back, or a good old-fashioned beehive. Whatever you do, just don't give your lawn a buzz cut. Keep your grass tall all summer and help our local Monona pollinators spread their goodness. Learn more about slow-mo summer by going to mymonona.com. So that's one example.
That's great.
Isn't that? So I
Dave
sent
is so funny. Dave is great.
he is a gem. So there are several others as well. I intended to email the group. I've just been slammed and didn't get
No
to
worry,
it.
no worry. Hey, Kristen, I love that PSA, but I wonder, should we sort of insert the whole, but not taller than 8 inches?
Yeah,
Remember
this is why
they
I
said
haven't
it's still
called
in
it.
yeah, it's still, unless it is a planned natural landscape, right? But if you're just talking about turf grass, we still do have it on the books that we need to keep that shorter than 8 inches, so,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna add a few of these specifics and send to the group for feedback and final approval, so you guys get a chance to see.
Is that what
So-
is that what you would prefer to do? Just email it, or what would you like?
I'm glad to do that so that you guys can, give any input or suggestions, if that works for you. So,
Absolutely.
okay.
Do you have a date yet from Dave as far as like when you might get in the studio and get those
So
out?
I need to make these few, revisions or edits to the PSAs, send to you all. So I'm hoping to be, smart about it. Midweek next week, I will schedule with Will Nimmo over in VMO here to get a recording time. So
Fantastic. Fantastic. Okay, some other things that we had talked about, in addition to Kristen working on those PSAs, thank you, it's fantastic. I reached out to Joe Martin, who is the host of the VMO show. And a year or two ago, maybe 2 years now, I was in the studio with Joe and we were just talking about No Mow May. And from that conversation, he just created short little snippets that ran, from time to time on the radio. And I asked him if we could do the same thing, except let's talk about beyond No Mow May. Let's just sort of try to move ahead and talk about just in general pollinator habitat, which I know that Tim, that you've done very, very similar things. You've been in the studio with Joe and you know how that goes. From that conversation, you get, 3 or 4 nice little snippets. So hopefully that'll happen. We'll see. I think he's kind of busy these days. But I am wondering, Tim, if I could just sort of use that as a segue. Can you give us a little update on what the Bee and Butterfly folks are up to these days?
Yeah, so we, as I think a lot of you know, submitted another successful grant application to the Dane County Native Plant program in the winter months. I think we submitted that in February and found out shortly thereafter that we had been accepted. We then lobbied our group members for funding. The plans for that proposed garden at the library were cost reduced but not free, like the ones that they offer in the summer. So we were able to fundraise and got enough funds to purchase 152 plants at a reduced cost. It's a couple $100, I believe, in total. And received plants on May 17th and planted them on May 18th at the library. I had a nice turnout, I think 4 or 5 volunteers. Sue was there, myself, and a couple other folks from the community. I got them all planted in pretty quick order. It has been nice this year with all the rain. We haven't had to go water them as opposed to last summer. We also weeded out the garden from that we had planted last summer. So those plants look to be doing pretty well, especially now that they're rid of their competing weeds. And so hopefully we'll get some nice growth there. And Teresa, at the beginning here, before we formally kicked off, mentioned that she noticed our sign there that Ashley had worked so hard on last year. It's kind of beat up and in poor repair. So maybe we'll think about placing another sign or something to raise awareness of those efforts.
You know, this is just wonderful. Ashley, I'm wondering, what if we just printed a proper sign, like at a printer shop, like one of those made of the same material that like campaign yard signs are made of? We can just do that. Thor, do I need a motion to spend money? Like,
Oh, yeah.
we have money in our budget for a sign, I think. for
It's
the-
always a good idea to,
Yeah.
I would recommend that we get
Yeah.
one.
So I'll take a motion to for the Sustainability Committee to fund a sign for the Bee and Butterfly Brigade Garden at the library.
I so move.
Move. Is there a second? Second. all in favor? Second from Kristen, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Excellent. I believe we can make that sign of any dimension. And if you could just email me, or you made this in Canva?
Yeah, I think I have it as a PDF or a JPEG, so.
Absolutely. And export it from Canva with the bleed and the crop, and you know how
Yep.
that works, right? Yep,
Yep.
sweet. Okay, excellent.
Yeah, so we'll need to follow sign code
Yep,
for yard signs. I believe it's 3 by 2 feet is the maximum for yard signs.
I would maybe put forth that we reference that there's 2 gardens there, maybe the sign could go in between or now just kind of, if the language, I can't remember what the language says about what's happening here, but now it's what's happening in these 2 places, if that makes sense.
yeah, you know, maybe it's time to like update the sign. Yeah. 2 signs is fine.
Sites are limited to 1 yard sign. And Doug is really sensitive about the city not going above our own sign code.
Yeah,
because we don't want
yeah.
residents being like, why
We have
does the
to
city
lead by
get to?
example. Yeah, no,
Um,
we get it.
Might be able to put one in between.
The gardens are about 10 yards apart. so
Yeah.
Putting one in between would probably be.
Yeah. I'll talk with Doug
Okay.
about the possibility for 2, you know, of course, like for No May, we put like a couple yard signs up right at City Hall. So, well,
I know.
I'll talk with Doug, but I just wanna set that expectation for the committee that we might be limited to 1.
So you said 3 by 2. This sign is 1 foot tall by like 17, 18 inches wide. Maybe 2 little signs would be okay. I don't know.
Scoff law.
Well,
Maybe.
I wonder if you could put one up in and say, here's our new one, here's 1 year old.
Yeah.
And keep it in the perimeter of the garden so that they don't have to mow around it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't
I guess, actually, we might be allowed to, cause it's a corner lot, the library faces 2 streets.
Sure,
And
yeah,
then it would be allowed 2 signs, and I think it's fine if they're on the same street.
that would work too.
Alright, I'll go for two, but
That sounds great.
No promises.
I'm also
thinking of-
wondering, the Bee and Butterfly Brigade has its own Facebook page, or does it? Is it how did that turn out? I think you have your own Facebook page. You're not part of Sustainable Monona, right?
And Ann Allstott has been one of the more active members, and she offered to put that together, so that was citizen led.
Yeah, that's great.
And has had nice level of engagement, and is a good way to get the word out for these efforts, so.
Is there anything that we can do to help amplify? I mean, can we post it on the city Facebook pages?
You tell me,
Or what do you
that'd be
think?
nice.
Yeah,
yeah, we can certainly amplify it. I think it makes sense to have a separate page for
yeah.
group, yeah.
So, but can we yeah, there should be some help on that. Like if we could just promote the work on the city's Facebook page, that would be great.
Yeah, and I think any committee member, if you have something to promote, you have some content written up, you can just send it over to Will Nimmo. And he's managing all of the Facebook accounts now, just the one Facebook account, and he can help you with that.
So Tim, if you want to do that and just courtesy copy Thor and me and Rick too, if you want to, and just let him know that we talked. Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, sweet. And then, is there anything planned next? A tour or anything like that in the works?
There is nothing on the agenda right now,
Okay, fabulous.
maybe soon.
Teresa?
Yeah.
I just wondered, with the library, there's gonna be some things happening with that space.
Yep.
One, Nichols Avenue is gonna be reconstructed. And I think the library was gonna have a storybook walk. And they pulled that because of the reconstruction. So I'm not quite sure where that'll go, but stay in touch with Ryan and make sure whatever space you're thinking of using in the future just complements or integrates with that.
That was all considered. We were originally gonna do flowers around the storybook. And then in meeting with Ryan in preparation for this, he said we needed to set it back further because of exactly.
Oh, okay, so you know all that. Okay, good.
Yeah, I would think Tim would know that. Yeah. Okay, sweet. Next, just going through. This great big list here. Do we want to do anything to coordinate with the library? Like might the library have a display of books all about pollinators? If I'm not mistaken, June 17th through the 21st is Wisconsin Pollinator Awareness Week.
Wow.
So yeah, I've done my homework between meetings. Anyway, so I wonder, Rick, you're kind of and Susan, Rick's on the library board.
Yep.
And Susan's a big volunteer at the library. Might one of you approach Ryan and see what can be done there, or what do you think? Or is that something Thor should do?
I'm wondering if we can't work that through with the Eco Action Tuesday program, because there is a downstairs area that is sort of set up for sustainability, but it really hasn't been fully developed. And I've been kind of trying to get Penny DePaula to kind of work with me on building that area into a little bit better of a resource. I know when we do our programs, Penny always collects a ton of books on whatever subject we're talking about, and that gets, but she brings books in from other libraries as well for those events. So I don't know whether, I mean, I certainly think we could pull books from a section to highlight activities. That might be a really good use of the space too. It's kind of difficult sometimes how it gets used because it's not as well monitored as kind of be careful how we set up things and what is there, but it is an available space, and so, I mean, I think I could work with Penny, or if you want to, you know, whoever.
I'm wondering, like, of course, this wouldn't be as grand, but Rick, you recall, and many of you probably know this, that at the library some months ago, there was a wonderful display. Oh my goodness, I'm forgetting what it was. It was about African American. I'm drawing a blank. Rick, I remember you and I talked about it. Anyway, I just know that even though there is a dedicated sustainability section on the ground level, it might be nice just to put it in the main library, right? You know, instead of sort of quietly tucked away.
I think what we could do is approach, I forget her name, but Erin, who's the adult programmer. And I think if we approached her with a list of books that would be good to put on display. Basically, it'd be best if they were in the library system so she could easily get them. So, I mean, I could look, but if there's anyone on the committee who is more familiar with the books that people use that are most common or the best books in that category, you know, I could group all those together and approach Erin. But if there are other people on the committee that have book ideas, just forward them to me, and then I can forward that to Erin with the idea that National or State Pollinator Week is coming up, and here's a good set of books that might work for that.
Yeah,
I
it's
think-
coming up in 2 weeks.
I think I sent Laura a list of books for some of the website resources, so
Yeah, okay.
I have a list, I can send it to you too.
Okay,
That's
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect.
So
Great.
either at Monona or anywhere in the, is it
South Central Library System.
South Central Library System,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, that works.
And Penny is very used to doing that. She does it for every meeting.
Yeah. Yeah,
And she knows the stuff too. She really does.
Yeah.
So she'd be. a good-
okay. So I'm hearing Ashley's gonna send a list to Thor. Thor's gonna work with Rick. Rick's gonna approach Erin. Is that what I'm hearing?
Or do you want me to send it straight to you?
You can send it
Yeah.
right to me.
We'll skip Thor.
Perfect. Yeah.
I've got website content to
Okay. That sounds
Yeah,
great.
yeah, send it to me, and I could approach Erin with that.
And Rick, I think maybe if you could just reach out, would you mind reaching out to Erin right away, even before you have the list? Just because I
Yeah.
feel like the 17th is, you know, less than 2 weeks away. I don't know how much time it takes to order the books, and just, you know, everybody's so busy right now, just for her to sort of change what she's got on her
Yeah.
agenda might be.
Yeah, it'll be based on her availability for
Yeah.
time, and
Yeah.
if there isn't something already planned. But they usually like to do that because it increases the number of books checked out, which increases their funding, so.
Exactly.
So.
By the way, does everyone understand that? Isn't that
I didn't
fascinating?
know that.
I didn't know
That's
that.
the way that has a direct impact on funding.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so the
Yeah.
more books you check out, the better.
Things
I
you
don't think it
learn.
applies to,
Yeah.
Organizing or
or
anything.
things like that.
Encourage my daughter to check out as
And
many
there's
books as she
also
wants.
something with, there's something about if the library in Monona sends a book to another library, there's some impact on funding. Do you recall? Anyway, I just
don't know
remember,
that.
yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
interesting.
all right. So the next thing I was wondering about is the My Monona newsletter. That is coming up with a deadline. Let's see. I got too many things open on my computer here. Deadline, I think, is the last the third. I'm gonna open up my
Next Friday, I think.
next Friday. Yep, there's gonna be a deadline. Yep. And the 14th, yes. So not tomorrow, but the Friday after is the deadline for the June edition, which will come out then the following week. So do we want to put something in the newsletter about the pollinator garden at the library? Or is there something else that we want to put in the newsletter? I will share, may I share my screen with you, Thor? Am I allowed to do that during our meetings?
Yeah, I can make you a co-host, and then you can do that.
Sweet. All right. I just want to remind folks of what has already gone in the e-newsletter. It's so funny.
Rick, I just sent that email list to you.
You just did it?
I did.
Okay, now you can share.
Multitask.
Thank you. Share. All right, sweet. So in the month of April, this is what we had in the My Monona e-news. Ready? Oh, are you able to see?
Yeah,
Okay. Oh, it doesn't feel to me like are you seeing the screen?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, crazy. Usually I have like an outline showing me like what's being shared. So ready to take your normal man to a slow-mo summer, and it was all about that with a lot of links. And there was the link like check back to this page on our city website for more resources, which I know Ashley's
Still needs to work
gonna
on.
get to that. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, because you got nothing else going on, Ashley. Like you're just gonna dedicate all your time to this volunteer. And then the following month, so that was April, and then the following month, I took that sign from the city of Kaukauna, and I just sort of, I'm learning how to use Canva, you guys, like stand back, because I am dangerous. Canva is so addicting, holy smokes. So, and I just sort of changed up a little thing. It doesn't have to be anything other than a graphic for a newsletter. If we want to do the yard sign, we can. If we don't have to. It doesn't matter. But it's just nice to have a graphic supporting the article. And this was all about like you don't have to wait until the end of May because each year has a different, conditions with rainfall and things. And then it was just full of other resources about mowing fall and things like that. And then I think I ran it past Tim. I remember that, and he gave it the green light. I just didn't want to mention the Bee and Butterfly Brigade without getting the okay from him. So those two things have already gone out in the newsletter. And I was just wondering if we've got another opportunity coming up, what might we do next? Certainly the pollinator garden at the library is something. We can also just talk about Pollinator Week, and we can kind of, that article could be about Pollinator Week. And by the way, we've got a pollinator garden at the library. Or maybe there's another idea that people want to throw out there.
I'm happy to craft something on that front, maybe once Rick gets communication with Aaron, if they package together. If that's the direction you guys want to go, if you think you're saturated pollinator message over the last few months, that's also.
We have. We definitely have saturated that message, yes.
But in July or August, we'll have something about the new ordinance.
Right. And for the ordinance, I think the message, well, I recall there was some sort of interest from Public Works that it would be kind of one of those like, hey, did you know what the city right of way is and what it means if you plant in the right of way, and you kind of plant at your own risk. And anyway, we can talk about that later. But if you think that you'd like something in the newsletter, it's always available to us. I think we've got, just Pollinator Week and then the new garden at the library. And then even if Rick doesn't, even if the display doesn't happen, we still could have an article. Yeah. Okay. So Tim's going to craft something I heard, and then Ashley already sent the list to Rick. So what more can you want? Let's see. All right.
What do you need?
Oh, yeah. No, go ahead, please.
Yeah, just an idea. The DNR always loves to get citizen scientists involved in like lake water monitoring And it might be an angle to pitch to the community about wanting to do something fun with your kids, get your family involved, become a citizen scientist this summer. I don't know, I'm just kind of trying to link the community more into what we might make them aware of, you know, opportunities for them to engage. It doesn't have anything to do with our pollinator work. Just throwing it out there.
Could that be
Patrick.
could that be something? Is that something that you would want to put in the newsletter for a very specific month of the year, or can it happen later?
It can certainly happen later. I'm thinking of the timing of summer, right?
Sure.
And looking for things for young people to be involved in. And if we're wanting to increase engagement, you know, with our local natural resources, and try to be a voice and give visibility to opportunities, you know, it was just something that came to mind. My kiddo happened to come home and talk about it. You know, so thinking that might be something that others might be wanting to know about.
Yeah.
They are doing a lot of events at Lake Farm Park when it comes to bees and monitoring water, and there's a lot of dropped on events. I don't know if we wanna hype them, but there's a lot going on over there that Mononans can take advantage of.
Mhm.
In the interest of time, why don't we just sort of think about that?
Sure.
So that we get out of the meeting. And something else that we just, I know that Ashley and Thor are gonna work on the city webpage, just sort of focus less on No Mow May and more on the general pollinator stuff. And Kristen and I took a lovely walk around the neighborhood some time ago, and we just sort of did a little brainstorm of how that kind of opens up a lot of ideas for, you know, how do you brand this, right? And one of the things we were thinking about is how just the way that people use their property affects the health of our lake, right? You know, when you have a planned natural landscape, you're probably not going to be using chemicals, and that in turn means there's no runoff into the lakes, and that means less algae. When you're not using a lot of salt in the winter, that's also good for the lakes, you know. So we were kicking around the idea of a lake-friendly lawn. So I don't know if that's something we want, just put that in I'm not asking for any discussion on it tonight, but as we try to think of a way to brand like what this all means, I think what we're kind of landing on for the moment is beyond No Mow May, right? That's kind of where we're landing. If there's
So-
something else.
So Teresa, yeah, I had spoken with Tim a while back about this idea that I've had are you all familiar with buffer strips in like agriculture?
Yeah.
So the idea that I had was essentially, to your point of supporting clean lakes, is that if we have native planted buffer strips at the front of folks' lawn, like they don't necessarily even have to do an entire, native lawn, but the idea that a buffer strip, say of 3 feet wide at the front of a property, could then absorb and prevent both grass clippings and any kind of chemicals from getting down to the street level and out to the lakes. I had thought about it as like a research project, but I think it could possibly also go, if this committee is interested, something we could apply for funds for either, getting plants that folks can put in their yards, or for programming or something along those lines. But
What kind of plants? Could they just be flowers, or is it something that would block sightlines? I guess that's the.
I don't think it would have to be. I think it is more the point that we're not having grass and potential pesticides applied all the way to the curb, and that you have a certain amount of area that's covered with vegetation, like a certain amount of the time. I think there's probably a little bit of research that needs to go into the plantings that would be most successful in that. But yeah, just an idea I've also been kicking around that seems to coincide with your thoughts as well.
Another place to plant is at the base of wherever your downspouts are and looking at sort of slowing and, you know, infiltrating the water as close to those sites, so you don't have it running off, running through other things, taking other debris down with it. So it wouldn't necessarily have to be at the curb. I mean, an alternative would be to get those deep rooted plants to kind of take in that, basically a water garden, I guess, or whatever you know, something like that.
Actually, I wonder, when you're working to update the website, you know, I think the website could list any number of strategies,
Exactly.
and that could be certainly included as a strategy in the website update for now. And then if more research comes about as time goes on, that would be fine too. What are your thoughts?
Yep, that totally works.
Yeah, oh, okay, cool. Excellent. All right, I think we have accomplished a lot in this campaign. One final question: what is the thought of the committee when it comes to yard signs? Do we need different yard signs? At one point, we can mention, you know, we should just have people trade in their no more May yard sign for a slow-mo summer yard sign. But do we need a yard sign at all? I can go either way. I just wondered what your thoughts were.
A yard sign for No Mo May or for Slow Mo
For
Summer?
slow-mo summer, yeah, or for pollinator or something, whatever it might be. Remember there was that City of Kaukauna yard sign we kind of co-opted. It was the one that you saw in the newsletter. Yeah.
You're in the process of changing the city ordinance towards natural landscapes, as you called it.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of doing something that's pretty nebulous with slow-mo May, what does that mean? Does that just mean my grass is 4
Like
inches
slow-mo,
tall?
yeah.
Do we use those resources for any signs and have people who have some natural native landscapes already in place? Put them in July, once the ordinance is, you know, my yard, for example, I've got a bunch of native stuff out in the front yard. As does the person right across the street from me, is in the process of tearing out a big chunk of
Wow.
timber too.
I like this. I
and
like
we-
where this could go.
Do we raise the awareness of that new ordinance by saying, check out my new, you
Yeah.
know, this is, you can now do this legally. Yeah, you know, I did it 2 years ago. I don't know, just brainstorm.
I like that a lot. Are you
Yeah,
envisioning, Tim, are you just envisioning like basically like spotlighting the positive that's already happening, like drawing attention to what people are already doing with a sign? Or are you thinking of like social media and newsletters, or what?
all the above.
I mean, I guess all the above. I was just thinking about signs. You know, I know some people from the Bee and Butterfly Brigade, you know, Ryan, some of these people who hosted garden tours have really visible
Yes,
front yards with a lot of native perennials. And as you start to roll back the pre-existing rules that nominally and theoretically prevented it, but in practice didn't.
Yeah.
Do you highlight the fact that these are now kind of allowable and raise awareness as with some examples that are already pre-existing?
I think it's great. I could see us doing a map, interactive map of some of these. Each garden could be a newsletter article. I think it's a great thing to work together with the ordinance to really promote the possibilities of a naturalized garden.
And maybe we could even do sort of a kid-friendly or family-friendly thing where we have a number of people who would be willing to have their properties or sites on their properties be used as a, you know, part of a tour that you know, walking.
Yeah.
That-
Yeah, we've done tours.
learn a little bit about each space and why it was put there and what it does.
So
Yeah,
I
I
think
thought the
maybe. What
The
if
tours were going pretty well there for a while. I thought that got a lot of interest. If that's gonna happen again, then that could be great material for the newsletter too.
Or it could be
What was that?
self-walking tour too, that would be in this, there's some description of it somewhere that people could pick up and say, oh, here's where I could walk, and here's a 1 hour tour or a 2 hour tour. And then what you'd see on it or something, or what it highlights, I don't know.
Would it make sense to add it to the agenda for next month that we discuss ways of sort of using this new ordinance as a way to sort of, or, you know, to recognize the folks that already have these wonderful planned natural landscapes
Mhm.
in some way, try to think of ways that we can recognize them and draw attention to them.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
we're kind of brainstorming that now.
Okay. Okay. All right, it's 6:30, so I'm gonna keep moving here. Thank you, Ashley, for all the work that may be involved in updating the website. It's kind of hard to know sometimes what that entails, so, but all right, so then I'm moving on to new business. Discussion and possible action on a recommendation to the city council to pursue a Soul Smart designation. I'm gonna let Thor take this away.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is a Soul Smart's a program kind of like Bird City USA, Tree City USA, right? Where your city can reach certain levels of designation for implementing best practices. So this is about best practices for encouraging the adoption of solar, ground mounted solar, rooftop solar. So I attended a training a couple months ago, and Brad in Public Works has been interested in this for a while, and Ken on the committee couldn't be here tonight, but he has been interested in this too. So I wanted to give you an overview tonight of just what the program is, and I believe it'd be pretty simple to achieve at least a bronze level recognition. And then we can decide if we want to recommend to city council that they pass a resolution to pursue Soul Smart certification. So this second. So Soul Smart's, like I said, it's just recognition for local governments that implement best practices to encourage solar energy growth that largely focuses on like the permitting process and zoning and barriers that are often in those administrative reviews. And then it also encourages training city staff and building inspection, but it also gets into community outreach and building a market for residential group purchase of solar. The organization provides no-cost technical assistance to the local government who pursues it. And so they'll sit down with you and look at their criteria and identify a realistic goal for you and help you achieve that. And it's really achievable for municipalities like Monona with limited staff resources. Some of our peer communities have recently pursued this, and you can see Sun Prairie has a platinum designation along with Dane County. Madison is gold. Smaller communities like McFarland has bronze, and I think we could easily get to at least bronze. And Dane County has been working kind of with all of the communities that are interested to support staff and to collaborate on this effort. So there is assistance as well from Dane County available to help us out with this. So the process is kind of, we reach out to Soul Smart to express our interest, and then they'll send out their assistance team or schedule some meetings with us, and we'll work to identify what our goal is, what level do we want to achieve, And then they'll help us, draft a plan for getting there. And help us coordinate with our regional partners like Dane County. And then we'll implement the recommended changes and then get our designation. I can advertise that, put stickers out, and the benefit of this is really in those changes that are implemented to get to that certification. Once we have it, it's not like it gets us access to funding or anything, it's just we've implemented those best practices. So 4 categories or 4 levels, bronze up to platinum. And I'm just gonna go over today, what would it take for us to achieve bronze? I'm not saying that's where we would have to stop, I just wanna show that there'd be limited staff resources and minor changes needed just to get to bronze, so. First, I have to implement 3 prerequisites, and this is where I think the sustainability committee could really lend some assistance. So be drafting a document to demonstrate our commitment to pursue Soul Smart. I think that would be a resolution from council, essentially. And then post an online checklist, just outlining our current process for if you want rooftop solar or ground mounted solar. What permits do you need? What's the process like? What the review process? What zoning requirements are there? So that's just kind of compiling a list of what we're doing right now. The planning department does that often for, just little informational flyers for folks who fence permit process, for instance. And then zoning review, and Soul Smart will work with you on this. And just a review of your zoning requirements to identify barriers to solar development. And then compile findings in a memo and present to the Plan Commission to City Council. Just to highlight, where we need to improve. Then you have to achieve 20 points in 3 different categories. So the first one is permitting and inspection. The stars are items that I think we could achieve pretty realistically, and then the gold stars, the filled in ones, are ones that we have already achieved. From my conversation with Dane County, since I attended this training, we have already trained permitting staff on best practices for. So we're halfway there.
Good job, Thor.
And then, training for our building inspector would get us the rest of the way there, or. Create a new application form for solar PV permits. Require no more than 1 permit application form. So it's really quick and simple things, online checklists to break down those barriers. So I think it'd be limited staff resources there to get those 20 points. Planning and zoning is the next one. Again, because I went to that training, trained planning and zoning staff on best practices, so we're halfway there. And then there's more points that we can get through posting online fact sheets, tracking solar PV goals, presenting that required memo we have to write to the Plan Commission, drafting proposed changes to the zoning code based on that memo. Making solar a by right allowance in all major zones. So again, I think pretty achievable there for planning and zoning with minor changes. And then other categories, there's like 3 or 4 other ones. I just highlighted this one because in government operations, we've already got those 20 points for having solar on our municipal buildings. So we're pretty close, I think, and certainly a worthwhile effort, I believe. Certainly our zoning code could it'd be worthwhile to review that and identify those barriers and then explore changes to encourage rooftop solar. We have a pretty ambitious renewable energy goal on a tight timeline, and this would be a valuable step towards reaching that. So I'm gonna open up to discussion now, and my goal for this would be for the committee to discuss and ultimately for a motion to recommend that council pass a resolution or to pursue Soul Smart designation.
Thank you.
This
Yeah.
is geared towards private property, right? We're talking about private owned, commercial and residential
Yeah,
properties.
all, yeah, for the zoning reform, it's all major zones, residential, retail, commercial, industrial. But there also are changes for government operations and community outreach that we can also pursue as part of this.
Thor, I just have a question. If I'm a residential person and I want to add solar to my house, how would this change the process of what I would go through or inform the process? Can you kind of give me a perspective from the user's standpoint? What would this achieve?
Well, so it depends on what changes we make, but first of all, we would just identify what barriers there are for residential homeowners who want to install solar. And then we would, if we pursue this with Soul Smart, we'd identify kind of a realistic path to removing those barriers, or how many of those barriers we want to remove, and then work towards that. So it could just be, we want to simplify the process through providing more information online through checklists. It could be expediting the permit process. It could be waiving permit fees. It could be clarifying in the zoning code that you don't need any kind of conditional use permit for solar. It's just allowed as long as you meet building code. So it really depends on the path we take.
I could mention that I have solar on my house. I didn't apply for the permit. The contractors did all that.
Mhm.
So me as a user, it was invisible.
Didn't change things?
Yep.
I was
Okay,
gonna just say the same thing, I too have solar and these barriers were not perceptible to me. Someone was doing the work, the contractors had to do some work, I suspect it wasn't much, I mean, to Susan's point. I don't think it'll change much from the purchaser's point of view. That said, it's probably really worth doing from a marketing perspective and getting some kind of tie-in with their expertise, because I imagine the next things that they want done is A, make it easy, and then B, start outreach,
Yeah.
start saying, we are Soul Smart accredited, we've now, as going through some of this process, we've got a little link on our website, maybe linking to some local vendors and building
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah, I will say in our zoning code, in residential, single family and two family, solar is not even mentioned. It's just, as long as it meets building code, it'll get zoning approval as well. You really are still applying for a building permit. I don't believe it even, solar counts towards height limits for single family structures. So, you know, like, we already are doing really well there, but maybe they would ask us just to make it clear in the zoning code that, hey, solar is allowed by right,
Yeah.
as long as you meet building code. Where we could improve is probably in our commercial zoning districts, because essentially every use there requires plan commission review and conditional use permitting. So there'd be more opportunities to clarify how solar is allowed, and maybe an opportunity for
Streamlining it a little bit.
like making it by right allowance. But any of those zoning changes are gonna require approval from the plan commission and ultimately city council.
Thank you.
So Thor, are there any other questions about?
Well, if this does turn into more of a marketing program, one thing it might be worth mentioning is that the historic preservation tax credits can be used when you put a solar panel on your house.
Historic preservation, do you mean Renew Monona? Or,
No, the state tax credits for historic houses So you can get up to 40% tax credits for certain eligible items.
Hmm.
So like the 2 historic schools could get them,
Mhm.
but all the homes in Frost Woods, once they're on the National Register, a lot of those will be eligible for historic preservation tax credits.
Okay.
It has to be built within the footprint of the house. It can't be like solar on the ground.
Mhm.
But it's quite a benefit.
Yeah, okay, that's a great point, because yeah, if the Frostwoods Historic District does get listed, then that would open up a lot of properties to those tax credits.
Right.
And I'm glad you mentioned ground mounted solar, because we don't really have any experience with that in the city, and that would be an opportunity as well to clarify in the zoning code how that's allowed. If you know, you could make setback exceptions and such for ground mounted solar.
What stands out to me, which I know this is really critical at this point in history of our city of Monona, is that there's no cost and very little staff resources needed. That's huge. It sounds to me like this is an opportunity for someone else to review all of our ordinances and let us know how we compare to other communities. Like, are we a solar friendly community, so to speak, as it comes to our ordinances? And if it could help in the retail and commercial space, that would be spectacular. Thor, I'm hearing from you, I think, is that you're looking for could you please repeat the kind of motion that you're looking?
Yeah, so ultimately, any kind of decision to pursue this would need to come from council, but we should recommend to council that they do pursue this. So that would be the motion to recommend that council adopt the resolution to pursue.
All right. So I will take a motion for to recommend to the city council that we adopt the SoulSmart program. Is there a motion?
I'll move that.
So Rick's gonna is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kristen. All in favor?
Can I just ask a quick question?
Sure, I'm sorry. Yes, are there any questions?
So Thor, would you write the resolution once we approve this?
I think we work with Bill, and probably you and Teresa as sponsors would.
Oh, okay, we get into
Yeah.
a work group of sorts.
Yeah, I don't know, I've never done a resolution before.
Well, just take a look at the others.
Yeah,
There's so many of them, yeah.
Okay. So, okay,
yep.
I'm ready to
All right.
vote.
Are there any other questions? Are there any other questions? No? Okay. So all in favor of approving, all in favor of the motion as presented, say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you. Wonderful. All right, 6:50, we're getting kind of long here, but I want to move on to the next item on the agenda. Discussion on possible resident tree buying program and promotion of the street tree plantings. Thor and I met with Director Anderson, Jake Anderson of the Parks Department some time ago. And we opened the conversation wondering, it was all about, might there be an area of park space that he might set aside, for pollinators. Long story short, the conversation turned to like, let's not do that, let's do this. And Jake actually presented the idea to find a way for residents to plant more trees, which Thor and I thought, absolutely, yes, that's even better. So Director Anderson and Jeff Johnson, the city forester, Rick and I all got together with Thor as well, and we talked about what this might look like. And there were some really great conversations that came about it. Basically, there are three categories that we're talking about here. We're talking about trees that are planted in the street on the right of way, we're talking about trees that can be planted anywhere on a residential property. So it's kind of, and somewhere, well, actually, let's just leave it at that for those two categories. And as far as right-of-way trees go, I feel like, you know, like when you get a really good babysitter and you don't want to tell anybody else about your babysitter because you don't want them to steal your babysitter from you. I feel like I want to keep this secret to myself, but for everyone in the room and anyone who cares to log into city meetings, I didn't know that every year, I learned just recently that every year the city of Monona Public Works Department plants about 35 trees on right-of-way property, right? And if you have space on your property that is in the city right-of-way, and if you'd like them to come out and plant a tree for you absolutely free of charge, you just call up the Department of Public Works, you call up Jeff Johnson, and you get on the list. How about that? They'll come out and they'll plant it for you.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It is amazing. And I feel like I want to do my whole street,
Call
right?
them
Just get my whole.
Before this goes on.
So the phone's gonna go off the hook now, right? So, but here's the thing, like, they pick it out, not you, and they pick the placement, not you. And that makes sense, right? Because they don't want an entire city of just elm trees. We all know how bad that was. Or emerald or ash trees. We all know the problem that happens. So that's the right-of-way program. Possibly we could promote that a little bit more, maybe. Only 35 trees, but we could promote it. The real thing was Jake was interested in promoting just residential trees. And every year in the autumn, he orders trees, which are then delivered in the spring. And because he orders so many, he can get a nice discount, the bulk purchase, and that lower price could be passed on to residents. So something might be that we, and every year he plants about 40 trees in city parks. And so Thor and I thought maybe we pilot the program. We start with just 10 trees. We see how it goes. We test the water. We test our marketing materials, our outreach, and we approach residents with whatever materials we need to give them, whatever educational materials they might require to make a decision. They would order the trees in, well, we would approach them in the summertime. There would be a site assessment, a site analysis that parks would come out and do for them. The trees would be ordered in September. They would arrive the next spring and be planted in April. The resident might pay $50 or $100 and parks would pay, you know, $50 or $100 depending on the size of the tree. The idea would be that the tree would be small enough that it could be put in the ground with shovels instead of equipment that parks would need or Public Works would need. And the tree would be small enough that it could be picked up so that parks would not have to deliver it. And the sustainability committee again would be responsible for coming up with the criteria, if there's any policy, education, the benefits of improving our urban forest canopy, and things like that. There might be planting assistance in some way, perhaps the sustainability committee, just like we have our Bee and Butterfly Brigade. Rick has stumbled upon a group at a school where they kind of have a tree planting brigade of parents. Maybe we could have something like that where, you know, people just show up and help someone put a tree in their yard. And that's what I got. Thor, am I missing anything?
No, I think that covers it. Essentially, you know, the vision would be, this would be a subsidized program for residents to get access to lower cost trees, plus likely assistance in marking their property for where a tree could go, and then help with installing the tree, essentially.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Love
Yeah,
that.
like the resident would be responsible for like calling Digger's hotline, you know, and watering the tree and things like that. But like Thor just said, parks would actually like guide them in placement of the tree. That'd be great.
Quick question, that sounds awesome. You mentioned that it was gonna be a discounted rate because they're bought in bulk with.
Yep.
City's order.
Yeah.
But then you also implied that said the resident would pay $1,500 and the city would pay $1,500. Is it subsidized or is it just discounted on bulk ordering? Is the city
Could
actually?
be both.
But
Yeah,
well, but the subsidized requires funding.
Yeah.
Bulk ordering is just
Exactly.
getting a discount.
yeah, Jake mentioned that his vision would be that it is subsidized, that, yeah, the resident would only pay a portion of the cost or.
But that would not be coming out of the sustainability committee budget, correct?
Yeah, we're not at that point yet in discussions,
$400
yeah,
might not go
likely
very far.
there'd be, likely there'd be some kind of ask from council at some point, you know, or money specifically for this program. We did talk about, we wanna do a pilot of some kind, where that money would come from, and sustainability does have funds right now. You know, to use, we have this essentially $2,000 still for this year, and we could potentially use it for this kind of pilot project.
Yeah.
And then show council that, hey, this works, we were able to, you know, work with residents, plant 10 trees in appropriate locations, and we wanna grow this program next year.
Have some seed, though. Sorry.
So it feels to me like we just have to really sell the benefits and really explain as well, yeah.
Yeah, and it'd be limited, you know, the city would only have so many resources for X number of trees, so the idea would be there'd be an application eventually, and Teresa mentioned the sustainability committee's role, one of the roles would be maybe to create eligibility criteria for the applications, who are they, or, you know, maybe a scoring criteria for how we're weighting applications.
So as I recall, Jake says he orders in September, October,
Yep,
Yeah,
so we'd have to have everything in place by then.
or sooner, because he was talking about doing a site visit in like July or August. I mean, it's a very short turnaround time for this year, but maybe if we just treat it like a pilot, you know, and we don't go too crazy, and we just see how it goes, and we learn where the barriers are and what the challenges are and where the pushback is.
So
Is that the newsletter asking 10 days? Is that, you know, seeking 10 motivated individuals to help us launch a pilot program for subsidized tree plantings?
I don't think we're there yet, we still need to, I think, work with the city administrator on how this would look. Jake's timeline would be, yeah, so ordering trees in September or October, and then prior to that, you know, applications in July or August, and during that time frame, they would meet with staff to kind of identify where on their lot the tree could go. So I think, you know, if we have a newsletter submission in July or August, that could still work with this timeline.
Would, where that tree should go, I mean, we're talking mainly now not about the street right of way option, right? Just
Correct.
Not at all, yeah.
because I don't like that other one at all. But you know, I do have some reservations about this one too, and just in terms of our liability and so on. Having some fairly not perfectly situated, but not badly situated trees on my property that are now losing branches every time large storms come by. I'm just looking at some of that too. I mean, if we plant, we should plant with, certainly with the ideas of what's shade in the summertime and, you know, those kinds of issues that are normally considered, I think, and obviously avoiding all the infrastructure and so on that we could run into. But besides that, you know, looking at these things as things we want to grow, being aware of what kinds of pods or debris they spread at storm drain time and all those other issues, the wind impacts now and the prevalence, but you know, the more frequency of storms and stuff just I have some concerns about whether liability would be an issue or, just in general, what the,
I could speak to that a little. So the city forester would provide us a list of trees from which residents would choose. They would not be a free for all, like you'd have a very limited list of trees, like trees that grow to 40 feet, trees that grow to 20 feet, shade trees that like, this sort of environment. And there might be a little description of each tree. And of course, with that site visit, site evaluation, there would be more discussion about what the right tree for your site might be. And the pros and cons, like you just talked about, are there pods that would drop on your lawn, things like that. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Or were you thinking of liability in a different way?
well, also, just storms bringing, I mean, certain trees are sturdier than others, I mean.
Right. Yeah.
Just all
Yeah.
those issues, I mean, I don't know, I mean, people both have to be informed about this and that.
Yes.
We'll
Yes.
grow and be different.
Yeah.
But, because, I just wondered how that would
Well,
be.
It would be entirely voluntary, of course. So nobody would be, people would be coming to us. It would be like, here's this program, you get this low price, you get assistance in planting.
Right,
If you're interested, let us know.
okay.
And if they're not interested, they don't have to do anything.
There'd be no liability, right? Because it would be the landowner, homeowner planting the tree. It's
Right.
just kind of like city approval to get a subsidized tree at their site, that it meets the criteria that Susan's kind of pointing out, right?
I
That's-
I
It's not
can
gonna
see,
spill onto,
yeah, I can see, if the city's advising them where to place a tree,
Oh, I see.
then but certainly with the application and any kind of contract that was drafted for the purchase, then certainly the city attorney would be drafting that in. That's always his biggest
Yeah.
concern is liability, so I don't think it'd be a concern, we handle that. On the
We could
back
have
end,
them
yeah,
sign a waiver.
yeah.
No. Got it. Okay. Sorry,
City-
Susan, I didn't quite understand. Now I understand what you mean. So if the city is advising them, does that mean that we have some sort of liability? I see what you mean. Okay, got it. All right. As far as subsidizing it goes, I guess we need to talk about that maybe later.
Yeah, I think the goal of today's conversation was to just open this conversation up and see the committee's appetite for it and.
Yep.
Maybe at our next meeting, we actually discuss committing funds. for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. But initial responses, is it favorable or yes or no or?
Positive,
Yeah.
yeah, very
Yeah, okay,
positive.
great. So then let's just keep working on that. Thor and Rick and I will keep talking with Jake and Jeff and see what more information we can get from them.
Yeah. Yep, and then Neil will be back from vacation
Yes,
next week and we'll loop him in.
yes. I wonder if we can get through the next 3 things in 15 or 20 minutes. Shall we challenge ourselves? Discussion, June 29th electronic recycling event. Thor, go for it.
All right, June 29th, it's coming up fast. I finally got the contract in hand this week from Resource Solutions and all the promotional materials. So no real changes from last year, except for they are not accepting like large refrigerators anymore. Which they told me that over the phone, but then I see in the flyer that they're gonna be sending out that it does list it.
Mhm.
So I'll reach out to them and clarify, see if that can be removed. And they'll be sending out 1,000 flyers, these flyers. My understanding is they just, buy 1,000 through the post office and then the post office kind of just determines where they go based on their routes, so it's kind of randomized. But is designed to be focused around the location, like kind of in a radius around the school district office. Right? So, yeah. Yeah. And let's see, so our fee is $350. So we'll need a motion to commit that. That's the same as last year. And then I'll be submitting a newsletter submission to advertise this and we'll get it, last year was in the Isthmus on their calendar of events and I'll let our local paper know and we'll just, advertise it in kind of our standard locations online and at municipal buildings. And if
What were
anyone
the-
wants to be there to volunteer, let me know if you can help out on the 29th.
Sorry, I'm out of town that week, but what were the results like last year?
Not as. We didn't have as good of attendance as the year before or 2 years before, but I think that's just because,
There's
I
less stuff
anticipate
left.
less, yeah, people got rid of their stuff, so. I think this year they give us a weight at the end of it of how much material they collected. And, if we are still seeing a downward trend, then we'll discuss if we wanna keep doing this.
Maybe skip a year or something.
Yeah, right.
I get the feeling that a lot of people didn't know about it too. I think maybe we just need to be a little bit more intentional or in people's faces about it, or I don't know, just how we can get that out, but.
It's a really good point, Susan. I agree with you 100%. So I wrote that down as Thor was talking. So Thor said that he was going to put an article in the e-newsletter and Facebook and the Isthmus. And what else did you say, Thor?
We'll do the Herald Independent as well.
Yep.
I'll just let them know, see if they wanna write something up about it. And then, flyers around municipal buildings.
Is there anything we can do with WBMO?
Yeah,
Like a quick
Yeah.
spot?
Yeah, we need to do that.
Yeah.
I think just sending the flyer to Will is maybe enough for Will to mention it. Or Thor, do you want to get in the studio with Joe and do like a little snippet about what people can bring in, or I don't know,
Yeah.
whatever you think is best.
Yeah, okay. I'll reach out to Will and see if we can, just like a 15-second thing would be
Yeah.
really great,
Yeah.
more frequently, I think,
Yeah.
leading up to the events, so people at different times.
Yeah, right.
I agree. And then whatever we post to Facebook, that graphic, is that already created, like a Facebook ready graphic? Or, Instagram or whatever the social media.
Yeah, I had one from last year. I also need to update like the acceptable materials and the prices for dropping off materials, and then I can get that up.
Yeah, and just if the rest of us then could amplify that on our own, social media platforms, that'd be really helpful. Can anyone else think of another, to Susan's point about we need more promotion, any other ideas? Doesn't this organization recycle that stuff? Don't they do mailers to the houses?
Yeah, so they're sending out 1,000 mailers. I said flyers, but
Just
mailers.
1,000, even though there's like, how many residents are there in Monona? There's households like 3,000, I want to say.
Yeah, that's their standard contract. That's what we've done in the past, and
Okay.
that's what they buy from the post office. They buy
Okay,
1,000 placements essentially, and the post office with their routes determines which households get them.
What about anything with MESBA?
yes, thank you. I'll reach out to NERPA. Very good idea.
And I don't think we'll have styrofoam recycling this year.
Okay.
The guy who provided that service last year said he could maybe make it.
Yeah.
Could maybe drop off like an unmanned trailer, but he can't personally be there and he's, I'm still waiting to confirm. It's been hard to reach him.
Okay. So I think at this point, I'm gonna take a motion to commit $350 of the sustainability budget to recycle that stuff for our electronics recycling event. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Okay, a second? Any more discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No, motion passes. Fabulous. So that's
Yes, sir.
June 29th at the district offices on Nichols Road. What was the time, Thor?
8 AM until noon.
Got it. Okay, sweet.
I just say maybe we set some kind of threshold so that we're not having this conversation next year where we say, well, it was a little bit less, and was it? You know, to have a metric of if we're gonna do this again, or move to every other year, which was Rick's point.
Yeah.
If we're thinking about money every year,
Mhm.
we wanna get a sense we're getting some bang for the buck,
Yeah.
we didn't really know what the weight was the last 3 years.
Yeah, well, we have that,
Okay,
we have that metric tracked, and they'll provide it, yeah, we'll do a recap at our next meeting.
awesome.
Excellent idea, Tim. We have talked about going to an every other year frequency before.
So
All
probably
right.
next, that would be the time to decide that, not next
Right.
June, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay, gotcha.
All right, next item, discussion about a tour of the Pelletier Recycling Facility. This was brought up by Alder Bernstein.
Yeah, well, I'm planning to go, but I just wanted to check in with other members of the committee if they're interested. Pelletier does a pretty good tour of their facility at Kip Street. If there was interest, I would try to do it as a group. You do have to go at certain hours of the day. I think it's,
Yeah, I can pull it up real quick.
yeah.
It's during the workday.
Yeah, it is during the workday, so that might be harder for some of us.
In the mornings or.
Well, let's see, we're gonna find the hours here, yeah. So it's like between 8 and 9,
Yeah.
10 and 12, and 3:15 and 5. And it would have to be Monday through Friday, it's like a 1 hour tour. I guess my interest was piqued in this because I was starting to do PSAs, I did one on metal. But before I did others, I wanted to see the facility itself. And just have a better sense of, you know, what that facility does and how it does it. Try to translate that into some cool little PSAs. But
So is, oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, if there is
So is the-
interest, we could try to arrange something. If not, I'll probably just go on my own.
Okay, do you have a date picked out?
I do want you
Yeah.
all to that June 25th.
Yeah.
Tuesday program will be presented by Pelletier, so we are having that.
Yeah, so if people are interested in joining what they're already doing, that'll be at night, correct?
That's the evening, yes, I
So
think
that's
probably
Pico
great
Tuesday,
pictures of the facility and so
yeah,
on. It's not the same as being there, believe me, I've been there and it's very interesting. But I do think that they'll probably do a reasonably good job, so, you know, I don't know who all is signed up yet and how many spots they have available, but certainly it's there for people.
Right.
It's out in the news at this point.
yeah. I won't be here that week, so I can't take advantage of it. But so I'm gonna have to make other arrangements for myself.
Oh, it's-
Okay, so Rick, is there anything more about this? Is it just, you've let us know the date, and if people want to join you, they should get in touch with you? Is that how you wanna?
That's one way to do it. I could just pick a date that works for me and let other people know.
Okay, if
Uh,
that's what you think, yeah.
yeah. And if not that date, they
Or
can join in on.
And identify a couple dates and we can send out a doodle poll, try and maximize.
If there's interest, doodle polls are my least favorite thing. Especially when they have like 25 dates. It's like, I can't keep all those free for you. It's gonna take 2 weeks to figure this out. But yeah, if you're interested and you wanna try to arrange something through a doodle poll, that might work.
Okay.
I see a couple heads.
Yeah.
Not so much?
Work days.
Yeah, gotcha. So I will follow up with you two and
I'm
others.
interested, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I'll pick a couple dates and we'll see what works and we'll do it
Sounds
through a
great.
doodle poll. Maybe you and I can figure that out.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Sounds great. All right,
Alright.
and final item on the agenda, discussion on Next Treks Plastic Recycling Challenge Program.
Okay, this was mentioned by Kristen at our last meeting. And let's see.
Oh.
So this is a program that McFarland has participated in. Nextrex makes like a composite material that's often used for like decking and benches. You're probably familiar with it. And they have this program where over a 12-month period, the community tries to collect 1,000 pounds of plastic waste, like plastic bags, essentially. And then if you do, they'll turn it into a bench and give it to your community. So McFarland has done this and I think got like 3 benches out of it.
Wow.
They, it wasn't the city that did it though, it was the Lions Club that organized this. So I've only been in contact with the city there and not with the Lions Club, so I don't know what kind of the overhead commitment was, but it sounds like Nextrex just kind of sends your community some promotional materials, posters, and then 3 of these bins and you identify where to place them and
I talked to a lion today,
you did, okay,
if you want me to report
Yeah,
on that,
please,
unless
please.
you wanna go. Do you have?
I'm
You-
sorry, too.
I talked to a lion,
Oh, okay.
one of the lions in Verona. And they're doing this. I
Oh.
followed up.
Okay.
what did
Should I report on that?
Do you
Yeah.
have the time to do it?
I have time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we have the time? I guess?
Yes.
Okay. It can be any service organization, it doesn't have to be the Lions. But he does it in Verona and it basically involves setting out these big boxes that they line with 55-gallon plastic liners. And then you have to just commit to picking and weighing them, picking them up and weighing them. Once a week or some regular schedule like that. And then you bring it to a participating grocer. Who then sends it through their regional facility to the place. And so the website lists the grocery stores that are participating. And Pick and Save is listed, I don't know if Metro Market is listed.
Okay.
So that's,
I would imagine, so they have a bag recycling at Metro Market.
so maybe it's all
Assume
the
that they
same
have
chain.
Something, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so in Verona, they've gotten like as many as 7 benches over 2.5 years. And you can get nameplates that you can affix to them and it can say the name of the service group or something else. When we met with Jake, one of the things that came up is that they're saturated with park benches. So they don't need any more benches, so we'd have to think of other places to donate the benches to. I think that's kind of it.
Okay.
You'd have to find places to put those boxes. So I think he said it's like the library, the community center, the city hall. I don't know if it would work here or not, so we'd have to find places that would be willing to host.
Did he
These-
mention how they're going about the weighing of them?
They just have a very simple device. He said it costs a few dollars from Amazon.
Hmm.
And then, you know, like,
Suspend a bag.
yeah, like you weigh a
Okay.
fish or something, you know.
Okay.
But it could, he said he works with his kids, like on spring break and does photographs as a way of promoting it on spring break. So if you work like with a family to do these pickups, it builds the buzz kind of thing.
Metro Market is one of the participating 5.
Oh, they are, great.
Different locations,
Wow,
Kohl's department
yeah.
store, different number of places.
Oh, there you go.
Unless that means Kohl's grocery store, but I don't know if there are,
Oh, yeah. Cole's
Maybe I-
Grocery, yeah, could be one or the other.
right?
Yeah.
So I guess,
Or could
Oh,
be
go ahead.
the resource, what's that place, Restore?
Right.
Yeah, something like that.
so I
So,
just,
yeah, they collect a few £100 a week, I think. So it takes a while before you get enough for a bench.
have a couple questions come to mind. What I heard two things that I wanted to bring up. So one, I heard that Jake Anderson said that they have enough benches. And two, I heard that Metro Market is already doing this.
They're
So,
one of the
so I hate
places
to
you
be
could-
like a wet blanket. I just want.
I don't know if the Metro Market in town is doing this.
Oh, we don't
They're
know.
one of
Okay.
the grocers who participate in the program. So that's where we could do the drop-offs whenever we get enough.
Yeah.
On a weekly
Oh.
pickup.
So,
Yeah.
so we wouldn't be competing with them.
Oh, no,
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 no.
no.
Oh,
No, they're
okay.
just a link
I
in the chain.
misunderstood. I'm sorry. Okay.
And this would all be tracked online, so at the end of the week, someone had to be responsible for entering the number of pounds that were collected that week. And then, I don't know what else there is online, but there's a tracking system online that kind of monitors the project. So we, as the city of Monona or the Lions Club of Monona, I don't even know if there is one. Optimus, I know there's a Monona Optimus, you know, whatever service organization, American Legion. We'd have to find some service group or committed group of volunteers, you know. But yeah, that's where we come in, is finding the labor for that.
And the only product that the collected material can be made into is a bench.
That's what I'm told, various colors,
Okay. Okay.
but
And,
yeah, it's basically benches.
okay. All right. Should we kind of flesh this out a little bit more, maybe at our next meeting, if there, or does it? What would be a reasonable next step? What do you think, Rick?
You have an idea?
Well, I'm just thinking, I think that there are other locations besides parks that we might find
Yeah.
that these benches could benefit from, the collective efforts of the community. That might be something that we can discuss further at our next meeting.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of
School-
retirement
schools?
home, schools.
Yeah, yeah.
Sure, we could just, consider how we might wanna
Yeah,
angle that.
and I could scout around for other. Service organizations that might be willing to. Sign up with us. That would probably be the best way to go. Rather than trying to. Cause they'll be around year to year, whereas if you
Yeah.
got 5 people together. People would come and go. But the Lions Club or something like that would fill in when someone steps out.
Got it. Okay.
So it'd have a greater longevity.
So does it sound, so I guess, so next steps, do we just resume the conversation at our next meeting? Is there anything that you would be doing then, Rick, between the meetings, or
Yeah,
are
yeah.
you I guess, are you volunteering to kind of do the legwork?
I am.
You are.
Rick?
I didn't want to sign you up for something with, okay, that sounds wonderful. That would be
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah, so I'll do some more investigation
Okay.
and report again next month.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And
That's
I
fantastic.
can look in for help from Kristen.
Yes, I am your willing assistant.
That's fantastic. Okay, that takes us to the end of our agenda. We do have some standing items that are always on the agenda each time though, but that would be number 7, DEI. Are there any items that anyone would like to share about DEI initiatives going on in Monona that you know about, that you'd like to share? This is a standing agenda item.
I think just to pick up on our last meeting, we had talked briefly about doing translation into Spanish of some of our materials, and I don't think we've picked that conversation back up, so just to get it back on there.
Thank you very, very, very much.
I'm
really
not volunteering for live translation services, but I'm willing to volunteer for translating written documents, yeah.
Oh, so you're fairly fluent?
Yeah.
So can we like try it out on one or two pieces of handouts or things of ours that we do, translate them into Spanish and see how that might look?
We're gonna
Like our,
we're gonna pick that
yeah,
up.
well, agenda
Yeah.
item for next
Next
month.
time.
Yeah.
Put it as an agenda item
Yeah.
for next one, okay.
Yeah. Okay, number 8 on the agenda, any updates from committee members or items to consider for future agenda items? And it sounds like we've got a couple already that we've talked about tonight. I would like to add that after the meeting, I'm gonna send out, or maybe I'll have Thor send out, a link to the Green Tier Legacy Communities report, just with a reminder that, you know, what we do, if as much as possible, it should link back to that Green Tier Legacy Communities report. And for some time, we as a committee had been talking about this concept of how do we operationalize sustainability throughout the city, right? And that really is the tool that city departments are following. And just like the Soul Smart criteria that we reviewed tonight, very similarly, we've got a bunch of criteria on that GTLC report. Some of those criteria would play very well into some of the work that we've talked about tonight, planting more trees, some of our pollinator work. So it's always good to link our work back to that report. So we'll send that out, and then next month, we'll talk a little bit more about that in some depth. All right, and then that takes us to, well, I guess that takes us to the adjournment. I know it's a very sad moment for everyone to say goodbye.
So moved.
Before we get there, about next month,
Jubilantly. Thor, what was that?
just about next month, our
Thank you.
scheduled meeting is July 4th, so
Ah.
we'll find an alternate date, so I'll be sending out a doodle poll for people's availability.
Doodle, don't doodle me.
Thank you so much, everyone. We had a motion to adjourn and a second by somebody, and
Quick second.
and all in favor?
Hi.
Aye, yay, woo. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good night.